there is this specific issue over China providing machine tools and other, equipment that Russia can use to build new arms factories, to build new arms supply lines. China is doing that. It says it's just part of the normal, what you might call dual-use trade. There was a British government minister who years ago said, you can use a screwdriver to, fix a light or build a missile. It's that kind of stuff that America wants China to stop providing Russia with, and China says it won't.
Some other news now, and the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Beijing on a diplomatic push to shore up relations with China. President Xi Jinping says he wants the two nations to be partners, not rivals. But Antony Blinken was talking tough when he arrived there this morning.
Russia would struggle to sustain its assault on Ukraine without China's support. In my meetings with NATO allies earlier this month and with our G7 partners just last week, I heard that same message. Fueling Russia's defense industrial base not only threatens Ukrainian security, it threatens European security. Beijing cannot achieve better relations with Europe while supporting the greatest threat to European security since the end of the Cold War.
Antony Blinken speaking there. Well, let's now speak to the Times' China correspondent, Richard Spencer. Richard, just set out for us the biggest problems in the relationship between the two countries at the moment.
Well, there's two really big issues that Blinken's been discussing. One's a really broad issue, which is basically, the existential problems of our time, which is, the rise of China and the fact it has a very different view on a whole host of issues, from human rights to what makes the Pacific secure, and Taiwan and America's role in supporting Pacific states. Those are the big issues over which there's unlikely to be any agreement anytime soon, but they feel they have to discuss them a lot of the time. And this very specific issue, which you just heard Blinken talking about, which is the question of China's support for Russia in Ukraine. Now, China says it's not supporting Russia and Ukraine. It's neutral in that conflict. It is not, in fact, selling arms to Russia, which is a good thing from the West's perspective. Obviously, from Ukraine's perspective, that's a contrast, say, with North Korea, which is providing ammunition to Russia. But there is this specific issue over China providing machine tools and other, equipment that Russia can use to build new arms factories, to build new arms supply lines. China is doing that. It says it's just part of the normal, what you might call dual-use trade. There was a British government minister who years ago said, you can use a screwdriver to, fix a light or build a missile. It's that kind of stuff that America wants China to stop providing Russia with, and China says it won't.
And just how big a deal is it, Antony Blinken arriving in China? The extent to which people in China or the Chinese state take that much notice, Richard?
Oh, they take a lot of notice. They're really concerned about. They attach a lot of importance to these. What looked like to us symbolic visits. China pays a lot of attention to symbolism. The background to this visit, starts in August 2022 when Nancy Pelosi, the then US Speaker, led a sort of very high-level congressional delegation to Taiwan. That sent the Chinese ballistic. They were very unhappy about that. They said it was supporting Taiwan independence, which is a red line for China. Taiwan has this sort of strange, ambiguous status where it's recognized by the UN as part of China, but is self-governing. And China sort of says, well, okay, we don't really agree with that, but what we really don't accept is it declaring independence. So that sent China ballistic. It stopped all contact, all military-to-military contact, for example, was stopped. There were no sort of high-level visits for months and months and months. And then eventually President Xi accepted a visit to a big sort of Asia-Pacific summit in San Francisco last November. And that was an indication that, these lower level visits, if you like, could resume, and China and America could start discussing all these sensitive issues like arms and military, posturing in the Pacific and so on. So yeah, it is quite a big thing for China. I mean, probably less so for America at this stage. It has other problems of its own to deal with, but it's a very big deal for China.
Richard, always good to speak to you. Richard Spencer, there, our China correspondent, reporting as Anthony Blinken arrives in Beijing. Back close to home now. Now, academics and researchers involved in cutting-edge science at British universities are to be vetted by the security services under new government plans. It follows a secret review into vulnerabilities of the UK's higher education sector carried out by the security services, which included that foreign states such as China, we're just talking about, are attempting to steal sensitive research. Well, the Times' policy editor, Oliver Wright, joins me now. Ollie, what are we talking about? What counts as this sort of cutting-edge science that would require this vetting?
You're looking at things like quantum computing, you're looking at AI, you're looking at sort of synthetic biology, anything which, in the sort of terminology that the government uses, has a dual use, i.e. civilian or potentially military, or indeed, kinds of technology that, as Richard was saying, the British don't want the Chinese sending to Russia.
And so what form will this vetting take?
I think it would be very similar to the kind of vetting that takes place currently within government for people who have access to sensitive information. In certain circumstances, there's something called developed vetting, where if you're going to have a particular kind of post, there is an agency which is linked to the security services that looks into your background, your parents' background, your views, and sort of past political views, and then makes a decision on whether that person should have access to that kind of information.
We'll just have to see how that pans out.